But why don't we start with a few introductions? Liz, did you want to go ahead and introduce yourself a little bit?
Oh, yeah. I am Liz, and I am the developer advocate here at Stacklet. In prior lifetimes, I've been a developer. I've also been a social media manager for Dog and Cat magazine, as well as a ghostwriter for a celebrity gossip blog. So I come to tech and software from a very, I think, non-traditional perspective. So yeah, what about you? Who are you, Liam?
Wonderful. So my name is Liam Randall, and I'm a serial entrepreneur. I've worked at the intersection of tech and security and entrepreneurship for quite some time. I worked on taking Bro Zeke out of Berkeley, near 15 years ago now. I launched the very first Kubernetes company, which I sold to Capital One, where I had the incredible pleasure of getting to know both Kapil and Travis. And when they decided that they were launching a company around Cloud Custodian, I not only invested, but joined the team as the Vice President of Business Development. And I'm going to get us started real quick with a quick overview on the tools that Stacklet's building to help make governance as code an easier platform to leverage for the enterprise. The thing I'd start with is that Stacklet is entirely committed to Cloud Custodian. You know, we like to say that we're not built on Cloud Custodian, we're built with Cloud Custodian. Because reason one to believe in Stacklet as a great partner is the fact that our engine is open source, and that means that developers all around the world and organizations everywhere can contribute in order to make a Cloud Custodian the lingua franca of governance for the cloud. If you're not familiar with Cloud Custodian, Liz is going to do a quick introduction here in a minute, but it's very easy to use, and we'll start leveraging its syntax as we do a couple demos today. But what Stacklet's doing is that we've thought through the life cycle of the security teams and the cloud operation teams, and we've put 3 products into the market today. The first is Stacklet Platform, which is the sort of hub of our hub and spoke model. And what it starts by doing is managing the life cycle of Cloud Custodian. So what this does is as you start to onboard your estate into our environment, it manages the deployment, the upgrading, the scaling, and the mapping of policies to products. It's intuitive, and we'll look through some of the reports that we've been designing, and it integrates very tightly with our other products. Our second product is Stacklet Asset DB, and this is a holistic and accurate picture of your entire cloud estate. It's unique for 3 specific reasons. The first, as Kapil mentioned earlier, is that this is dynamically generated from the cloud APIs themselves. So in order to keep up with the pace of innovation in the cloud, Asset DB is built right from the source. The second is that it gives you visibility across hundreds of unique resources in the cloud. You can access these directly via SQL, so you can integrate this into your own solutions. And we're working on pre-canned reports and queries that give you visibility. The third thing that really distinguishes Asset DB is that it gives you visibility not only across space, but also across time. As we're observing the changes in your environment, the sort of creates, the reads, the updates, deletes, we sort of log and start to track who is making those changes and when. So you get this powerful forensic capability that can assist you in understanding the change velocity of your environment, as well as support things like incident response. This is integrated into Cloud Custodian as well, and Stacklet Platform. So you have the ability to sort of take pressure off some of those API request limits as you look at scaling and managing your policies even further. The third thing that we'll mention briefly, but we won't dive into too much today, are our policy packs, which regardless of if you're configuring a green field or a brown field, these policy packs are designed to get you started and productive right out of the box. We're aligning very closely with the Cloud Security Alliance and their Cloud Controls Matrix, which sort of functions as a Rosetta Stone for mapping controls back to standards. And we have produced policy packs that help you address your security needs, your governance needs, your compliance needs, and also your cost savings needs. And Liz, I think right now I'll hand it off to you, and perhaps you can get us started with a quick overview of Cloud Custodian.
Excellent. I would love to do that for you all. So the reason why I was asking in the chat how you all are related to working with the cloud is because, so I'm, a developer, and I just have a quick question, which is, how many of you have, in your excitement for testing out something you've been working on, have deployed, maybe like in your excitement, some kind of resource that was not in compliance? Like, definitely guilty. And you can keep it to yourselves if you don't want to admit it in the chat. So I'm excited actually to share something with you that would have made this these kinds of things a lot easier to avoid. So I am very happy to introduce to you Cloud Custodian, which is, why is it not sharing? Hang on. There we go. Okay. Oh, I know what I did wrong. Cool. So yeah, like I was saying, I'm very excited to introduce Cloud Custodian to all of you. I know we've mentioned Cloud Custodian a lot today, but I think it's important to understanding what Stacklet's doing to understand what's going on with Cloud Custodian, right? So let's take a quick tour of some of the Cloud Custodian syntax. So essentially what Cloud Custodian is trying to do at a high level, not trying, what it does, you have some kind of event, you have some kind of filter then operates on that event, and then with the output of your filter, you get some kind of action, right? So here's a little piece of some Cloud Custodian syntax. What's really awesome about this, the declarative language that we have here, is it makes things really easy to kind of categorize, right? So if we take a look at this policy on the right, we start with the resource, right? In this case, we're identifying the resource that we want to work on. And as you can see, it is an S3 bucket that we'd like to focus on, right? Next, we've got the mode of this policy. There's two modes that Cloud Custodian runs in. The default is a pool mode, right? And so the way you might use that in your production process is you might have something that sets it off periodically, right? The other event mode, or the other mode, is events. And so you can use something like CloudTrail and use a certain event to trigger your policy. Next, when your policy is triggered, you have your filters. These are going to filter out which of the resources you're working on you then want to perhaps take an action on. In this case, we're looking for all the S3 buckets that are not encrypted. Oops. Then with the output of that filter, we can take an action. There's many different kinds of actions that can be taken. In this example, you can see a notification action as well as a mark for op. So what's going on here is that we can notify the creator of this resource, in this case, maybe me. And then we can also take the next step of marking this resource to eventually be deleted if no remediation is taken or executed. So what's really cool about this, and some of the stuff that our awesome speakers have mentioned, and some of the words that really jumped out to me, were the concepts of enablement and empowerment, right, as well as engagement. This really helps everyone collaborate more and better when everyone has the ability to actually take action, right? So in this case, right, these are maybe some of the notifications you'd receive on the left. So they integrate with Slack. You can also email people, although that's betting on developers actually reading their emails. But what's good about this is it helps drive behavior change, right? And so some of the interesting questions that you all have asked are regarding onboarding and how to make that as frictionless as possible, right? I think part of that is making the stuff like making governance part of a habit, right? It's part of the culture as of a team, right? And so the notifications in Cloud Custodian really help drive that behavior change, in that, like, I can get a notification that my S3 is out of compliance, and then I can also, in that same notification, see how I can remediate it, right? Again, compliance, that's that call to action that me as a developer, I know what I did wrong, but I also know how to fix it. And this also makes the finance department happy, because with Cloud Custodian, you can automate off-hours scheduling, stuff like garbage collection, and identifying unused resources that are, quickly running up the bill. So that is an overview of the Cloud Custodian syntax and that domain-specific language that we're talking about. And with that, I would like to then pass this on to Liam for our awesome demo.
Thank you so much, Liz. And I really enjoyed, the way that you explained Cloud Custodian as answering phone calls, because I think that makes a lot of sense. And when I was thinking through a demo that would be very powerful and might resonate with people, I wanted to sort of reach a little bit further than a simple binary checkbox, a one-to-one relationship between a phone call about an event, like a database being turned on or a new host being provisioned, and really demonstrate the power of a domain-specific language like Cloud Custodian. Because not only does Cloud Custodian and Stacklet Platform give you information about the event, it has context about what's around the event. When we're thinking about what makes it hard to effectively govern your cloud, whether we're thinking about security, compliance, or cost automation, it's because all of the cloud APIs have very subtle and intricate relationships with each other across the board. So we wanted to design a quick demo that would let us show you how easily we can detect complex misconfigurations in the cloud. And these actually reflect very real world compromises that we've seen. So what we're going to do is we're going to walk through an example demonstration here. And what I'm doing is at the application layer, I'm running a website that's a little Go program that includes a web shell. And I'll play the role of the hacker. And we'll see that at the data plane layer, where Cloud Custodian and Stacklet Platform get their events, we'll see how we receive not only the events that are happening, but also the context around those events, so that we can address a very complex situation. So let's introduce our web shell. If I could just get a thumbs up, or maybe Liz, if you could just confirm if everybody can still see my screen okay?
I can see it.
Wonderful. Yep. So I'm going to introduce a fake company here that does not exist, called PersonFax. And PersonFax sells the best person facts. They're smart, they're gorgeous, and they're insanely fast. And their developers have been hard at work building out custom tooling for their platform so that they can scale this. But what the developers don't realize is that when they deployed their application, they accidentally opened up a web shell here. And what is happening is that if you're not too familiar with this concept, through the URL and parameters that I can pass, this oftentimes happens through SQL injection, the developers are able to issue commands that are executed locally. So I can absolutely start chaining commands together here and start, basically navigating this permission with the context of the application, or in this case, with the context of this EC2. Now, unfortunately, when we look at who we're logged in as, well, fortunately, I suppose, we're just running as the local user here. But this web front end is provisioned in such a way so that it can onboard new users into the ecosystem, which means that when we start to dive into some of the details here, by hitting the AWS local metadata service, we can start to look at, let's see, IAM, and we can start to look at the info. And we see that we're running with a credential called IAM admin PersonFax demo. As we sort of pivot through the system here, we can start to learn and ask the local metadata service to describe the network settings that are attached to this EC2. So we're right now at the intersection of 3 different resource types that are running here in the cloud. We have an EC2, we have the IAM that it's attached to, and we also have the network security policies that we're configuring with. And unfortunately here, the attacker has more than read-only access. In this case, you can see that port 8080 is open here to my application. And for those that are trying to play along at home, this is locked down to the IP where I'm at now. So you can DDoS me, I suppose, but you're not going to be able to drive this web shell. It is in my GitHub if you'd like to play with it later. And that 22 is also open. But let's pretend that the attacker would like to start making changes into our environment. So in this case, the attacker uses the AWS CLI tools, and I'm short on time, otherwise I would have installed these live using the web shell to start making an update. And in this case, we're just opening up port 80 and again, locking it down. If we go back and refresh our network policy that's attached to the system, we can see now that port 80 is open in real time. And this is reflective of many high-profile hacks that you've read about or studied in various environments. But what I'd like to show you is how easy Cloud Custodian and Stacklet make this to detect, alert, notify, and remediate. And what we've done is, on Stacklet Platform here, I've already set up a policy that is, to Liz's point, only a couple of lines long here. So what this does is this is looking at all AWS EC2 instances here. I'll go and zoom in a little bit and kind of walk everyone through it. And there's some metadata here that describes what we're doing here, but that's not germane to the detection. It has a couple of filters. So we're looking for devices, EC2s in this case, that have a public IP address and have advanced permissions. In this case, permissions to create user and create functions. And if that is allowed, right now we're just doing an alert. So if I pivot right here into the UI, I can see right away that a Stacklet Platform is successfully detecting that this is a violation of our policy. So this is something that we could have detected as soon as we deployed. And with just a few more small configurations, we also could have configured this to alert the developer or to take action on our behalf in order to shut this down. So let me pause real quick and see if there's any questions. Let me pivot over and we'll do the crazy window spinning. Anybody have any questions about this demo or want to ask a follow-up? Was the purpose and intention of the demo clear? Were we able to successfully sort of demonstrate, complex cross resource detection?
Yeah, I think there was a question around right sizing. Can you do right sizing via this?
Absolutely, we can do different types of right sizing. So Cloud Custodian has filters that let you attach to metrics for various resources. So you can look for things like unused databases, or you can look at rates of access and query in order to make recommendations in that regard. There's some nuance and some complexities there when you're thinking about doing that. Kapil, did you want to maybe speak to some of that?
Yeah, I think you're right. There's nuances and complexities to right sizing. Part of it depends on if you want to do it online. Certain things like APS volumes support online resizing. You can provide Custodian. Custodian can do a utilization metric filter to determine things that are underutilized. Doing that with EC2 instances from a resizing perspective does require restarting them, but it is possible, and you basically just provide the map of existing instance type to desired instance type with regards to right sizing it. And then so that from a remediation perspective, so detection perspective, straightforward. You can find databases that are not used, instances that are over provisioned for what their workload. You can set up notifications on them. Dealing with remediation on right sizing is a bit more nuanced.
Great. And I think there was a question around remediation. So the answer was yes. Liz answered. Liz, I think you have to do a short demo. You have a bit more to show us.
Well, I don't want to take up any more time regarding, so we can get to more questions. What do you think, Liam?
Well, I think just the question about remediation is that there's a variety of remediation activities available to you that are specific to various resource types. So an example might be the ability to take a snapshot before you spin down a database. base. Kapil, do you maybe want to speak to advanced remediation options with Cloud Custodian?
Yeah, so first, it's worth understanding that Custodian effectively supports hundreds of resources, and for each of those resources has a set of generic filters and actions, as well as resource-specific ones. So if we got a guard duty alert event about an instance, we could take a snapshot of it, remove its IAM role, change its security groups, and by composing those individual actions into that particular policy. As far as advanced capabilities, you can also chain policies together to be able to, as we noted with regards to sort of the brownfield example of being able to take additional workflow action, construct a set of policies that is a semantic human workflow. But we also support being able to call out through a Lambda function as well as a step function for truly advanced cases that maybe have to deal with more internal integrations.
I think we do have a few more minutes that people are staying hanging around. If the questions are answered, I think there was a question on how well positioned Custodian is for dealing with ransomware cases, especially the remediation part, like shutting down a resource. I don't know, Liz or Liam, if you want to take that.
I think the initial thought that I would have here is that that there are some common governance activities that are considered best practices around blast radius. And that the first thing that would come to my mind would be to start to limit the sorts of credentials, network ACLs, and roles that sort of allow a single point of entry to have broad access across your domain. Kapil, do you have other thoughts on that?
Yeah, I think you're spot on. Like in terms of looking at the perimeter, and of course in the cloud, it's not just your network perimeter. All these resources have URLs, and so you're looking at the embedded IAM policies in different resources as well. And Custodian supports all of that natively. And I think we gave a great example with regards to perimeter EC2 instances that have overprivileged IAM roles. But I think from a ransomware perspective specifically, I think you're really looking at two things. One, making sure you've got a good backup policy, and Custodian can help, has been used to set up backups, create and then copy them across region for resiliency purposes, and then being able to deal with the termination of those things. So Custodian at its core is effectively, a tool of mass operation where you basically give it a set of filters to find the needle in the haystack, and then give it a set of actions to take corrective action, be that notification or be that direct remediation and modification of the resource. So in that context, it's not like a ransomware scenario is after the fact handling operational management consideration. And in that context, it's really about making sure you have good backups and a good way of dealing with the automation around the remediation itself. But there's probably more nuances to it than that in a particular given circumstance.
Yeah.
I would encourage you to maybe reach out and book a time. We'd be happy to spend some one-on-one time discussing the specific issue with you. Nikki asked a great question about the difference in features and scale and functionality of Stacklet versus Cloud Custodian. The first thing that I would maybe just point you at is that while Stacklet derives its sort of core logic engine for detection from Cloud Custodian, what Stacklet brings to the table that the open source doesn't have is a lot of automation. And we, with our experience in operating Cloud Custodian at very large scale, we have taken the time to ensure that when we deploy, manage, run, and scale your Cloud Custodian infrastructure, that we're doing it in a way that is optimized not only for scale, but also for resiliency, so that that your governance as code is always running optimally in the background. That's the first function. The second function is that right now, AssetDB and our policy packs are only available through a Stacklet subscription, as well as the user interface. So the sort of net of it is that while both the open source community and Stacklet are incredibly powerful options for implementing governance as code, the Stacklet route includes a lot of handholding, help, and automation. And the open source solution relies on you providing DevOps resources in order to automate those functions for you. Kapil, there was a question here around the using the metadata object and dereferencing those. Would you want to maybe comment about that a little bit? It was from Ryan.
Or
is it something we should just defer and take offline? Just scroll up a little bit in chat.
So the metadata object is on attribute on a policy is a relatively recent feature from, relatively within the last year, which allows you to put arbitrary metadata on a policy in a more structured place. We had grown a description and whatnot, and so you can it's actually just a full mapping in terms of the JSON schema and underlying JSON data structures and validation. So that is intended to allow people to do metadata in a freeform way, at least with regards to the open source. In our policy packs, we correlate those to various standards and semantics with regards to that. I think with regards to the question, I think Nikki had asked about scale functionality of Custodian versus Stacklet. Cloud Custodian itself was born at scale. I think Liam covered that a little bit. It's a question of dealing with the DevOps yourself. One of the key points for Custodian is that it's used in many different environments. People deploy Custodian on, run it from their laptops as an investigative tool, deploy it in Kubernetes and Jenkins and, code build and, various things. And so in that context, it's really hard to notionally know what it means to provide a best practice, because we want to support people, to one of the earlier points I think that David Lithicum made was the best place. What would you recommend to your peers? Just get started. And so to enable easily getting started in a variety of contexts and industries and organizations, we want to make the tool universally applicable, which means that it is just a one-line install. Now, when we look at trying to provide a product that has opinions and delivers value, we want to provide a mechanism for delivering that at scale for users. And so it's really about, in that context, taking some opinionated choices about this is really a best practice with regards to GitOps, with regards to at-scale rollout, with regards to centralized execution, et cetera. And so in that context, Stacklet is really just providing the automation and the out-of-the-box value for organizations, as well as providing some efficiency by being able to reuse AssetDB as far as those executions as well.
Kapil, that's a great point. We did a good job there, I think, demonstrating, how that incident showed up and could have easily been prevented with Cloud Custodian and Stacklet Platform. But we didn't show how that might show up using AssetDB. So I did pull together a couple quick screens I can kind of pivot through to show people the sort of power here. When we're looking at having a full asset database at your disposal, it means that you're free to do any sorts of integrations and dashboards that you would like to build here. So here I'm simply just building out some dashboards that are showing, the velocity of changes in an environment over time. But let's think about that specific role. How could we have audited the attacker's forensic activity when they were making those changes in our environment? And just as we're logging changes to EC2, we're also, of course, logging changes to security groups. So here with a quick little dashboard, I could easily see what activity the IAM admin person facts demo role had taken and what day. And we can see the version of the CLI that these changes were made from, as well as the source IP address. And all of this information is just right here at your fingertips with AssetDB and Stacklet Platform that you can sort of mix and match and share and display in any way that you think is useful for your users and your dashboards. I could even build a dashboard here just to look at and audit usage by particular roles here, for example. And you're not limited to just reviewing reports. Coming soon is the ability to trigger events off of these reports so that you could take more proactive notification and loop this into the alerting power of Stacklet Platform, sending alerts to Jira, sending alerts to Slack, to Teams, to email, and other ways that you might engage your user base, Splunk, and even a new ServiceNow integration that we're delivering as well.
Yep, that looks good. I know a few folks are still hanging on. Liz has another demo that shows the binding and the collection part of how you bind and do policy deployment to platform. Liz, do you want to show that a bit?
Yes, I would love to. Yeah, I'm sure you all have noticed how I'm kind of talking so excitedly about Stacklet because, as I mentioned in the chat, I was once on a team that was tasked with trying to change the culture of testing. We were having a lot of developer introduce incidents, and we wanted to try to correct that. And part of what made that so difficult, like trying to get people to feel like testing was a habit and not a chore, was making it like making testing tools really easy to onboard with, right? And so with Stacklet, I'm just so stoked because it seems like it makes it so easy, right? It makes it easier for like everyone to access what Stacklet is trying to do, right? That governance as code and the guardrails that that it can provide. So let me see if I can successfully share my screen, and I can show you a little bit more of the UI because I am just, you know, in love with this tool, and I'm not just saying that because I am supposed to advocate it. Here we go. Y'all let me know if I do this successfully because it's a little, okay. Gonna hide that and go here. So first of all, yeah, let's take a little tour of Stacklet here, a little bit deeper of a tour. So what's really awesome to me about Stacklet is you can take all of your different accounts here, right? So here, let's say like Person Facts acquires another company because they're just so successful, right? Well, one of the challenges of onboarding something like that can be trying to then get all of your accounts, your cloud accounts in order, right? What's so awesome about this, right, is that you have your, let me find them. So you can look like these are all the Person Facts policies, right? And you've got a collection of them here. It's super cool. Here's some of the visualizations that we mentioned earlier. So yeah, I can take this collection of policies, right? And then, like I said, let's say that we've acquired, Person Facts has acquired another company. We need to try to merge those cloud accounts. This is where account groups is really awesome. So what I can do is select this company or select this account, and then I can say I'd like to add it to an account group. I'm going to add it to our Person Facts account that's already exists. Right? And so then that means that the policies that we had for Person Facts will now be applied to this acquired company. And you can see that. So what I need to do is create this binding here. Let me remove this one. We're going to add one. So we're going to say, give it a description. We're going to then bind it to this account group we made. And then the policy collection that we want to apply. Let's say we want to do it every 10 minutes. And so now, if we go to that policy, one of the policies, give it one more second, y'all. Well, for some reason, sometimes there's a little bit of lag, and you know, as we've mentioned, there is some DNS outage stuff going on, but I can show you an example from an earlier policy run. But you can see here, now I've got one account and I've got the now new account. And so they're both executing successfully. They are both identifying resources that are not in compliance with those policies. And like I said, it's really easy to do this. It's part of what I love about it. And with, anything else? Anyone got any more awesome questions?
Yeah, we'll take any more questions, but thank you for everyone for hanging around for this longer. I know virtual events have been tough on everyone. I hope everyone found this content useful. If you have more questions, we have more time.
I'd also like to encourage everyone to feel free to reach out to Stacklet. You can visit us at stacklet.io and contact us there, or I'll drop my direct contact information into the chat window. We'd be happy to discuss any questions that you feel may be sensitive given the operations of your environment, or brainstorm some possibilities, or take your team through a larger demo or similar demos that align to the priorities of your organization. Umair, anything else?
No, I just want to thank all the speakers. I know some of them had to drop off, but I know, thank you, Kapil, thank you, Liam, thank you, Liz, thank you, Travis, thank you, Naor, for sticking around. And I think hope everyone found this useful. David and Corey had to drop off a bit earlier, but thanks, everyone.
Thank you. Thanks, everyone.
Thank you.
Thank you, everybody. Have a great day.